going to proceed, take a look at what is happening now in terms of diversity in Nashville. My primary interest, of course, is the African American community. So what you're going to see is just a brief presentation on the change in the geographic distribution of African Americans throughout the community over the past 20 years. And then I'm going to make a few comments about what other populations. Next slide. So the questions, research questions for this is what impacts is rapid urban growth having upon the African American community? As we know, Nashville is one of the fastest growing cities, well, metropolitan areas in the United States. So the question I wanted to ask is, well, what effect is that having upon the black population? Is there a connection? What's the effect of urban sprawl upon the black community? We've seen in Atlanta, for instance, that sprawl has resulted in inequity in terms of public transit, housing, environmental problems, etc., etc. And so, assuming that Nashville is moving in the same direction as Atlanta, I wanted to see, well, what is the future of our black population given this trend of growth? Probably most importantly, Nashville has been named one of the best cities for African Americans. I didn't have anything to do with it, even though I'm the project director of Black Enterprise on these rankings. But I want to look further at this. Is Nashville really a good place for black people, despite what the evidence shows? Next slide. So my area of specialization is geographic information systems, expert in GIS. Started using the software 20 years ago. Next slide. So this project involves spatial analysis. Next slide. And also I'm going to have some anecdotal information. Next slide. Just a little background on urban sprawl in Nashville. USA Today, the Brooklyn Institute has defined Nashville as one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. Next. We are growing very quickly, as most of you all probably know. Next slide. And so we have some of the fastest exurban communities, fastest growing exurban communities in the country. So again, I wanted to see what impact this having on the black population. As we sprawl, is it good for everybody? Because presumably, people see growth as being good. More homes, more people, more diverse community. But is it really? That's the question I'm trying to answer. Here's the 2000 MSA. But one of the trends that we're starting to see is that minorities are moving to suburbs, specifically the inner ring suburbs. We'll see that illustrated here. Next slide. Specifically in places such as Antioch and Madison, that's where we're starting to see a lot of middle-income African Americans in this community getting moved. So what does that mean? Next slide. You can't read that, so I'm just going to go past it. But this is what I really want to show. This is one of the downsides of sprawl is that you have depopulation of the urban center. And so these are just people who left Davidson County and went out to surrounding counties just from 1995 to 2000. So as this trend continues, the Davidson County is actually losing its higher taxpayers, people who are really mobile, more likely. So what does that mean for the school system? What does that mean for the police department? We know that we have a police department that is struggling to field officers. We know that we have a school system that is in distress. And we know that school system is predominantly African American public school. So by and large, we have almost a wall of apartheid with African Americans seemingly trapped inside Davidson County. Once you get outside Davidson County, the percentage of African Americans drops off significantly. So you have the region where you have the greatest loss of population taxpayers being where you have the massive African American population. Next slide. You can't read that. Okay, now here's something that just shows what's happening within the county itself. This is where black people were in 1980. Okay, next slide. And then 1990, next slide. And then 2000. So what you're seeing is a progressive movement of upwardly mobile African Americans into the inner ring suburbs. So when African Americans, and this is happening all over the country, we move to the suburbs. It's not necessarily Rutherford County, Williamson County. We might move to Madison. We might move to Antioch, maybe someplace like that. But what happens is that the core area, such as North Nashville, has been bleeding deep, and is bleeding upwardly the most productive members of the population. And so what you have left, of course, is despair and people who are in a lot of inequity. Next slide. And I'll show you. This is 1990. Shows you where black people were in 1990 versus 2000. Again, you can clearly see the move to the inner ring suburbs, the starter homes I was talking about. So certainly, there's a small percentage of the black population that is taking advantage of some of the newer developments in the inner ring suburbs. But by and large, the masses of black people in Nashville are not. As a matter of fact, when I did do the Black Enterprise rankings, Nashville has the lowest household income for African Americans in any city that we ranked. Lowest for African Americans. And there's a significant gap in that area between black and white in Nashville. So what we have largely in Nashville, even today, in spite of the fact that it's presumably a good place to live, is a predominantly poor African American population. Next slide. So here is a scattergram that shows median income versus race. Nashville, in census tracts where you have more whites, have more income. Next slide, please. Census tract, just the opposite of African Americans. African Americans, where you have higher density of African American population, have lower income. Exactly the opposite. Next slide. Here are just some other maps that we created. Here's public transit users. We know that our public transit system has leaves a lot to be desired. Even though most of us probably have never been on a bus in Nashville, because 98% of the population of Davidson County does not use public transit, and 2% of the population of Davidson County uses MTA. And next time you get on the bus, you might notice who's on the bus. Almost entirely people of color. Almost entirely. And so there's a direct correlation, as you can see, between people in poverty and people who are dependent upon MTA. And MTA being what it is, if you, for instance, think that you can go to the grocery store on the bus, it's not going to happen. You can't do it. Especially if you have a perishable good. If you wanted to ride, say, from somewhere off Charlotte Pike to Kroger on the bus and back, you might be able to get to Kroger. By the time it comes time to go back, there's no bus service going back. We have a we have a bus system, public transit system that is struggling, primarily because the ridership is mostly poor people of color. Most people don't even think about riding the bus. But there are people, as you can see, predominantly poor, predominantly black. That's the only way that things work. And also you have the issue of the bus routes not serving those inner ring suburbs. So for instance, if an African American female in the 50s, she can catch the bus, go out to Bell Mead, clean some white person's house during the day, and get back. But if her 18-year-old son wants to catch the bus out to work at Walmart in Bellevue, there's no bus service to do that. So therefore, that contributes to unemployment among teenage youth in the inner city. They can't get to work because most of the jobs are merging in those areas. So next slide. This is just a map, another map of the grocery stores. As you can see, we have a problem, especially in North Nashville, where we have no grocery store. And so a lot of black people in communities such as Edge Hill have to eat at these little Citgo gas, feed your children at Citgo gas station, paying more for lower quality food, being trapped into having to eat at some of the most substandard CE food places, where some of the food has been on the shelf for 5 years, far past expiration, no Kroger, no H.G. Hill, no Harris Teeter in those communities. It's a problem. It's a big problem because it not only affects, not just the issue of convenience, it's an issue of health, the health issue. We have a lot of what we call food deserts in Nashville, where people have no access. Large masses of black people have no access to a grocery store. And again, forget about riding a bus to the grocery store. If you're going to get perishable goods or baby formula, forget it. You can't last that long, especially in the summertime. It would take you 2 hours to make it just a round trip. It takes an hour to get from downtown to Rivergate Mall, if you've ever done it. An hour. Next slide. So as I said, my area of expertise primarily the African American population, but I did look at other populations. Between 1990 and 2000, Latin population here increased by 700%. Who knows what it's going to be with this next census? And in fact, what's interesting is that in recent polls of Middle Tennesseans, the greatest concern amongst is illegal immigration, 41%. That's the greatest concern. Illegal immigration versus 8% saying education. Now, what does that mean? You have a school system that has schools being taken over by the state, all kinds of problems in the public schools in Nashville. But people are more worried about illegal immigrants than they are about educating their children. That's a clear case. Then there's this effort to pass these English-only laws by local government. So what we have is a clear case of xenophobia. Xenophobia is a fear of people who are different. And we have a very xenophobic community. Next slide. Recently, we were ranked as the most unfriendly city towards gays and lesbians amongst U.S. cities, the United States, amongst the big cities. Which, that's just the reality of it. Most unfriendly towards gays and lesbians. Other populations, where we have large populations of Kurds in any city outside of Kurdistan. And I'll go home and look for Kurdistan on the map. It's not an official country, sort of like Palestine. But there is a place called Kurdistan. They have a website. But we have a lot of Kurds here, which is interesting. I don't have time to get into the dynamics of that, because they are Muslim, and we have a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment here. But yet these are the Muslims that we're trying to save from Saddam Hussein. But they catch a lot of flack because they are Muslim. And of course, due to the refugee relief efforts here, we do have a lot of Cambodian, East African, Central European population. So I guess that's all I have. All I can say is that hopefully we have a very, very diverse community here in Nashville. It goes far beyond the EHAW vision that most people have. And hopefully we'll recognize that it won't end up being ranked last on any list of unfriendliness. Thank you.